Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this. Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to the Champion Minded podcast. In today's episode of What It Takes, the part where I interview and get into the mindsets of the world's best performers in their field, I have a very special guest, someone whose career I've followed and definitely someone whose name you will recognize in the world of swimming, Roland Schoeman. When I looked up Roland's achievements and accolades on his website, which is rolandschoeman.co.za, I was astonished by the list of what he had achieved. It's absolutely mind-boggling. I'm not going to list them all, but Roland has held the world record in the 100 meters, broken the 50-meter butterfly twice, won gold, silver, and bronze at the Olympics, into which he's represented his country, South Africa, 4 times. Roland, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast.
Allistair, thanks for having me. So, I really appreciate it.
So, Roland, just looking at those accomplishments on your website, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I'm not even going to go into half of them because it would probably take up a quarter of the podcast. But, no, amazing. But, Roland, if you wouldn't mind quickly giving us a brief background of where you grew up, when you first started swimming, and how you'd describe your childhood.
All right. I grew up in Pretoria in South Africa, and honestly, I'd never been much of a swimmer. My mom and dad dropped me into the pool when I was about 6 years old to help my asthma, and it was about 3 weeks later I just didn't want to be in the swimming pool. I wanted to be out on the sports fields. I'd always been an avid rugby player and soccer player, and played cricket and tennis and athletics and hockey, and I just wanted to be out there in a team environment. And it wasn't until I was about 14 years of age, 14, 15, that there was there was a cute girl that was in my high school, and that was on the. So it's funny what we do in the name of love, but it was she was cute, and I think most conventional people would, if somebody was cute, they'd just kind of go up to the girl and speak to them and ask them out for a date. But no, Roland Schoeman decides he's going to start swimming for the swim team in order to impress her and show her that he likes her. So it was ended up swimming. We dated for a couple of months, and her father got transferred out of the city, and they moved, and I just fell in love with swimming. So it was it was a busy childhood. Lots and lots of sports. I was very blessed that my mom and dad tried to give everything to us that we possibly could need. So it was it was a good one. South Africa was a beautiful place to grow up in, and still love it to this day.
So basically, we have to thank that particular girl, the fact that you got into swimming, Roland.
Right, I do. There's a space in my heart for her, and obviously, it's strange to think back that a situation like that could have ended so much differently. Yeah. Where would I have been if I hadn't decided to do that? It's crazy how chance meeting changed everything.
Yeah. I mean, on the previous What It Takes podcast, we had Enrique Benaldi, who was in the Arrows Formula One team, and Enrique spoke about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Obviously,
right.
And I agreed with him, is that there's got to be an element of intrinsic motivation, something that pushes you to go swim, but obviously the extrinsic motivation is something else. But I must admit, Roland, in the history of asking athletes that question, that is the first time that one has come up. So thank you for that. Great start to the podcast. Roland,
you're quite welcome.
Roland, you mentioned you played a lot of sports growing up. In fact, I grew up not too far away from you. I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we were so fortunate to have a schooling system there that we could play so many sports. I mean, I can remember sometimes having to choose what sport I was going to play that afternoon, because you'd have 3 or 4 sports. But how important are multi-sports for an athlete?
I think it's significant. I just, my personal experience, I've been working and just giving technique lessons and coaching lessons to kids for the last 10 odd years, and you just see so many parents that are trying to get their kids just to work at one specific sport. They really want them to be a great swimmer, and then all they end up doing is specializing in swimming. And it's hard. I think, looking at in the country that we grew up in the sports that we were able to play, and just the freedom to choose without, the idea of specializing. Maybe it was because our professional sports system wasn't as advanced as it is now, where you knew you could make hundreds of millions of rands or dollars. And for us, it was more about just going out and enjoying it. But I think it's important to be a well-rounded athlete. I know that that's what the benefit was to me. I mean, people talk about the 10,000 hour rule, and I say, okay, well, maybe, it depends. I don't feel like I had 10,000 hours of being in the swimming pool before I represented South Africa for the first time. But I had more than 10,000 hours under my belt of being an athlete, being dynamic, training my energy systems and great, sort of creating a greater awareness of self and being able to see myself in different roles within teams, and also just helped me sort of with my personal development.
Roland, I'm gonna stop you right there, because you've just made an incredibly valid point that to be honest with you, I didn't think about. Is you spoke about the 10,000 hours, and you spoke about the fact that you might have not had 10,000 hours in swimming to reach an elite level and to represent your country, but you had at least 10,000 hours in other sports. That is gold right there, because this is what I feel parents miss today, and coaches, and to be honest with you, myself, I didn't think of it that way, is that the hours that you're also putting into another sport are benefiting that sport you're possibly specializing in, and that's a valuable point right there.
Yeah, it's something that I've felt for a long time, because we get so myopic about this idea that we have to spend 10,000 hours doing one specific sport. But if the body doesn't know the difference between the energy systems, okay, if I go in and I sprint hard on the rowing machine for 8 seconds, or if I go out on the track and I sprint hard for 8 seconds, or if I'm in the swimming pool for 8 seconds, it's still 8 seconds. And while there are different, the different techniques involved, you're still training energy systems. And to me, that's been something that I've been looking into far more frequently. But I do feel that having been an athlete and being that involved in it definitely helped me for years.
Roland, you touched on the subject about parents there, parents in sports, putting their kids into a sport early and wanting them to specialize. Of course, a lot of the times, unfortunately, it's the parents' goal, it's the parents' dream. What advice would you give to parents out there who have kids that are playing sports? Let's say kids between the ages of 8 and 13.
All the parents that I've worked with, I've encouraged to be active participants. A lot of, as you say, parents, it ends up being their dream. I was very fortunate enough that my mom and dad supported me in whatever my journey was. If I wanted to be involved in swimming, it was okay, well, and I remember what they said. I remember I wanted to start playing baseball, and I'm left-handed, so I needed a right-handed mitt. And my mom and dad said, okay, well, we'll happily get you a right-handed mitt, but then you got to commit to being involved for an entire season. And to me, that just didn't sound that appealing, because it was something I wanted to try out and didn't know if I was going to like, and decided not to do it. And if a kid's going to commit to doing a sport, then commit to doing the sport. Don't do it for 2-3 days. And I think a lot of parents will let kids get away with that kind of thing. And it's not right or wrong, but to me, I'm always encouraging parents to take an active interest, be there to support them, but also give them a little bit of freedom in which to move. If the kid feels sick, you don't have to. I think we get stuck in this idea of in sport is you have to be there every single day doing it no matter what. If you're sick, you have to participate. If you're healthy, you have to participate. If you're broken down, you have to participate. It isn't quite that simple. I think as a kid, you have to have the freedom to choose other things, to explore who you are as a human being, because that's where the greatest amount of personal development takes place as a kid. You start to develop and understand what your roles are in life and amongst other people. And if you're just specializing in one specific sport, whether it be swimming or basketball, whatever it is, there's a lot of personal growth that you aren't undertaking, in my personal opinion. Not that it's right or wrong, but I believe you should be exposed to as many stimulus as possible growing up.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Roland. You spoke about the kid having to go to practice when they're possibly sick or ill, or even sometimes, I've even found here in Florida, parents pushing their kids even when they're injured to go partake in the practice. On that subject, grit and resilience are two big words that are being thrown around right now in the sports industry, and obviously those originate from Angela Duckworth, who gave a great TED talk, and a lot of coaches are using that these days. Roland, what is grit and resilience to you? How does a young athlete build grit and resilience?
I think grit and resilience, it's it could be one of two things. It could be just innate, or it could be something that is a learned trait. For me, my grit and resilience was borderline stubbornness, where I was one of those kids, and I knew I'd be too sick to go to school, and I'd want to go to practice, whatever it was. And my mom always said, "You're too sick for school. You're too sick for practice." And I hated it at the time, but it was the truth. Grit and resilience over time became not whining, not complaining. I got into the habit in college of just complaining about the work. I didn't feel it didn't resonate within me. I didn't feel like the work that we were doing in the pool was going to be beneficial. And Frank Bush, the head coach at University of Arizona at that point in time, sat me down and said, "Roland, it's been an amazing ride of you being here, but if you're not going to buy into the system, if you're not going to do what we ask you to do and expect you to do, well, you can move on and go somewhere else, and I'll give you a hug, and you can go on and do it." And grit and resilience to me became about, what do I need to do to be the best in the history of my body? What does that champion look like? I need to stop comparing myself to everybody else around me, because these are uncontrollable variables that I'm never ever going to be able to change. And if I attempt to change them every single day, it's going to drive me absolutely insane. So the grit and the resilience came in, and at times it's going to hurt. And you finish a race, or you finish an event, you ask any golfer out there, they're gassed after 4 days out. You ask a tennis player, you speak to Kevin Anderson, you ask him how he feels after a 5-setter, it doesn't tickle. It's understanding that I need to put my body through everything. I need to put my mind through everything that it may experience when I am competing. And to be honest, I'd rather experience that sort of pain and suffering. And it's a relative term, pain and suffering. But I'd like to put myself through as much of that as possible while I am training, or while I was training, so that when I do get to a competition, I have that level of comfort knowing that, hey, nothing's going to be new. I've seen this all. It was just about being able to stay with it, just to stick with the idea, stick with the goals, and sort of work around that, whatever may come, whether it's an injury, whether it's an illness, and the grit and resilience not being, well, I'm injured, I'm going to go do it. While I'm sick, I'm going to go do it. It's being smart about it. There has to be a certain level of smartness associated with that grit and resilience and the determination.
I like that. Well said. You spoke about your coach back in college, and you spoke about having those hard conversations. Let's talk about coaching. What did you look for in a coach, and how important were those hard conversations?
To me, I was very blessed with a high school coach that I first started working with, Gavin Ross. And Gavin was a teacher at my high school, and he coached the swim team for the high school as well as a local club team, and just had he was just a really great mentor to me. His goal from the very beginning was to get all of his swimmers to go to the United States. He believed that the systems within South Africa, the programs within South Africa, weren't beneficial to everybody staying there. And he just knew the American system worked well, the opportunity to go overseas and get a degree internationally, be able to race there week in and week out, and how beneficial that was going to be. So it was, from day one, he's like, "Roland, my goal is to get you to the United States. I know what my coaching capabilities are." And he was real honest about that. He said, "I know I can get you to that level, but I don't feel like I can get you beyond." So that was incredible for me, that somebody could remove themselves from the ego and say, I know I can get you to this level, but not further. And
wow, that's sorry, that is just, that's something that's such a lesson today, especially in coaching, is that, egos can get involved, and especially in the tennis world and golf world. What we find here in Florida is that coaches want to have that that success. They want to go all the way. And, just to have a coach like that who had so much humility, I mean, it's just a lesson for all coaches out there.
I think it really is. And I really was blessed. And every time I look back to Gavin and see how selfless he was, it just exactly like you say, there's so many coaches throughout the world, not just Florida and the United States, but I can think of several coaches in South Africa that refuse to send their athletes to America because I want to coach this person. I want to have them be at the Olympics. I want them, because then I can be on a national team. Then I'm a national team coach, and it's all about me. Mm-hmm. And it's a partnership. And that's what I was very blessed with Gavin. And then when I got to Arizona, my coach was Rick DeMont, and I mean, with the NCAA's, there's certain rules and regulations, but for me, I wanted nothing more than to just go out and have a beer with Rick DeMont. But because of the NCAA regulations, I couldn't sort of have that friendship, and that was totally understood. And he was also a great mentor. He was less on the scientific side of swimming, but he was a real good artist, just an amazing artist, and he sold paintings for thousands of dollars. But the way he could just create a workout and see how you were feeling and things was awesome for me. I definitely feel that, without Gavin and Rick DeMont, I probably wouldn't have been where I am now. In terms of those tough conversations, it's every athlete should have somebody in their life, a mentor that is honest and open, to be able to tell them, who'll give input. I think if we're so ego driven that we can't accept somebody's criticism or constructive criticism and somebody's truth about the way we're conducting ourselves and being, it's unfortunate. And I was in that position. I'd become very, very cocky. I'd spent a couple of summers swimming up in Cal with the men's team in Cal, and I'd just seen the way they'd done things. And, and it was just, I got back to Arizona. It was like, well, this is the way we should do things, because this is the way Cal's performing well, and I want to do this. And, and every single day I'd just get in and I'd complain and I'd bitch and moan, and it was negative for me. I was becoming the negative person, and I didn't like that, and people didn't like being around that, and the coaches didn't like having that around, and I wasn't buying into the team ideal. And it was, I was very, very fortunate. This was in 2003 after the World Champs, had an awful World Championships, and got back to Tucson, and was a little unsure about what I was, what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go forward with my training. And that's when Frank Bush sat me down, and it was probably the best, sort of a gut check that I could have had, because I realized that I didn't like the person that I was at that point in time. I didn't like that I was lazy in relative terms, and that I wasn't training hard. And it was, I believe, one of those reasons that I turned it around, and in 2004 won 3 Olympic medals. It's, I think without that conversation, I probably wouldn't have really focused on the program and done everything in my power to become a better athlete.
2004 was Barcelona, am I right?
2004 was Athens.
Athens, sorry.
2003 was Barcelona World Championships, and then 2004 was the Athens Olympics.
Excellent. So, I mean, it's a place sometimes we as athletes have to, not just as athletes, but as people have to come to, is that hard realization of the truth, having someone in our lives that can tell us the tough things, the things we maybe don't want to hear. And I find that is so important, especially as an athlete, is to have those people that can have those hard conversations, because especially, and I keep going maybe back to the tennis world here, but so many players I see these days surround themselves with what I call yes people that are maybe protecting their jobs, enjoying the lifestyle of being on the tour, but they're not having those hard conversations with the players. And I think that's such a valuable lesson in sports. So thanks for sharing that Roland.
No, I agree with you 100%.
So I have to ask you this. In 2005, you turned down 40 million rand, or $6 million, to swim for Qatar. Is that true?
That's correct. Yeah, it was an interesting experience. I'd just finished the World Championships in Montreal. I'd become the first man to ever break 23 seconds in the 50-meter butterfly. I almost broke the world record in the 50-meter freestyle, and got back to the States, and my agent called me up and he said, so what do you know about Qatar or Qatar? And I didn't know very, very much at the time. It's like, well, they've reached out and they, wanting you to go and swim for them. And there's a whole bunch of back and forth, and eventually got to a deal that almost was too good to be true. And I called a lot of people that I trust, and South African athletes specifically. I spoke to somebody like Ernie Els, and he confided in him and asked him what his opinion was. And Ernie's words were, "Take the money and run." That's the reality. Other South African athletes had spoken to the exact same thing. There was not a single South African athlete that told me, no, it's going to be worthwhile. It's going to be worth more to stay in. And it was hard for me to separate at that age, at 25. I didn't have really any real great business mentors at that point in time. And it was really tough for me because it became a very emotional decision for me. It wasn't a business-driven decision. It was an emotionally driven decision. And it was hard for me to separate emotion in that point in time. And I can look back at it now and say, okay, well, if I'd done it, I would have been set up. I could have helped with the development of swimming in Qatar. I could have, there could have been programs at Roland Schoeman Academy. There would have been way more that I would have been able to do with the money that I had received from Qatar than South Africa. When this whole thing came up, and the president of South African swimming or the president of our Olympic committee said, what, they can take the money and they can leave. No, it wasn't okay, well, what can we do together to help develop sport in the country? And that's what the whole Qatar Federation and the Qatar IOC or Olympic Committee wanted to do. How can we benefit, or how can we together help create a legacy in sport in the country? And, I ended up making an emotional decision. Thought, okay, well, let me keep on swimming for my country because I love my country. South Africa, truly is the most beautiful country in the world, and it's a place that I have friends and family in. And to me, it was like, okay, well, if I win a medal for Qatar, do I stand up and listen to an anthem that may or may not resonate with me at the time, or that I may or may not feel enthusiastic about listening to? So it was. I made the emotional decision, and I didn't accept the money, and had really tried to get involved with the South African Swimming Federation and the South African Olympic Committee and really help foster changes and find a way to build the sport in our country. And there was absolutely no interest from them whatsoever. It was a closed system. We don't listen to athletes. What do athletes know? We are the people in charge, and we're going to do it. And you just look at the Olympic kit that South Africa walked around with in 2016 at the Rio Olympics. You look at a photo of Chad le Clos on the podium next to Michael Phelps. It's shocking that we have people in charge that do not have the best athletes or the best interests of the athletes at heart. That is what I wanted to change so badly, and it's the points when I look at that and see that, I'm like, well, maybe I should have gone to Qatar. Maybe it would have been far better off for both parties.
Just coming in there, I feel you, because I represented South Africa 5 times at the World Duathlon Championships, and I actually still have my tracksuit, and it's we were given tracksuits that were 3 times too big, and we were told, that's it, keep it or leave it. We even had to buy our own tracksuits and our own uniform to represent the country. Yeah, it definitely. I know exactly where you're coming from, and also the fact that federations not listening to the athletes, listening to the players, and having a voice. Yeah, it definitely was an unfortunate situation, but. Wow, to turn down that amount of money, especially during that time, it just shows you how committed you were to South Africa, Roland. So I acknowledge you there.
Thanks, and I'm still committed. It's just going to be a matter of time before the athletes really do have a say in South Africa, and I'm still at that point in time want to come in and help make changes. Still passionate about my country, still love my country. I'd love nothing more than to be able to be at another Olympic Games or be at Olympic Games in the future under the banner of South Africa, and be able to take on a sort of a consulting role or a mentorship role, and really be able to help the country get to where it can be. We have so much talent out there. I love love the talent that we do have, and you talk about grit and resilience, and the grit and resilience we do have there. So to be able to help foster that and get more medals for the country and more exposure for the country would be awesome for me in the future.
Yeah, I think, Roland, for someone with your experience and your know-how, I think any country could benefit from it. So hopefully South Africa is listening, the Swimming Federation is listening, and we could definitely get back to the glory days of how strong South African swimming was in the early 2000s with so many great swimmers. But of course we have Chad le Clos today, which is holding the flag high. Changing it up a little bit, Roland. Advice you'd give to a young swimmer or an up and coming athlete?
The advice, well, just from my personal experience, that Rome isn't built in a day, and I was the kind of swimmer that wanted to see the results immediately, and it was you talk about intrinsic versus external, and I was trying to find everything around me to become a better swimmer. Was it this YouTube video? Was it this article? And it was a matter of just trusting my own stroke that really cost me at the end of the day, not being able to step up and really trust what I was doing in the pool. And I think this was more towards the end of my career, because I know that when I was swimming at my best, my stroke technique wasn't a focus. I'd done everything I needed to do in the swimming pool, out of the swimming pool, and I could just get in and trust it. So my advice would be, there's lots of advice. I could speak for the next 3 hours on things that you can and should probably not do, but
we'll keep that for another podcast, Roland, for sure. So
yeah, there we go, the 5 methods. But I think it's get into a program that you love. Determine if swimming is or why you are swimming. Do you want to go to the Olympics? If your why really is strong enough, and be honest with yourself, because there's so many. We talk about parents driving their kids. If you as a kid can be honest with yourself and say, this is something that I want to do. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be an Olympic champion. I want to go to the World Championships or break a world record. Then do everything in your power to become the best version of yourself. My coach Rick DeMont said, to win is to be the best in the history of your body. And we need to stop looking at other people around us for what they're doing and how that's going to make us better, because that's just a snapshot of what's making them better. And maybe they have constraints within them that limit them from improving their stroke. So we look at all these people around us and all these models around us, and we're like, I want to be like that, or I want to be like that. I think it's good. I think it's great to have a role model and somebody you want to try and emulate. But don't lose yourself in that quest, because winning is going to be the best in the history of your body. So do everything you can. Figure out what your nutrition needs are. Figure out what your mobility needs are. What is your strength and conditioning needs. Just go. It's almost like a pie chart. What does my pie chart look like? What are my ingredients that are going to build this recipe of me as an amazing athlete? Figure those out and be honest with yourself, and don't be afraid to work hard. I think that's people are scared of pain, and it's going to hurt. It's like I said earlier, it's, climbing out at the end of your race, it's not going to tickle. Make sure that you put yourself in those learning experiences as often as you can, and use those opportunities to grow. And the last thing I'd say is, don't forget to just enjoy the ride. I think going to the 2016 Olympic Games as a coach for my friend George Babel of Trinidad and Tobago, I finally had an opportunity to step back and sort of see the world from the other side, and it was all the Olympic world from the other side. And I finally had the opportunity to enjoy the village, enjoy the experience, enjoy the nightlife. It was frustrating for me that it had taken so long for me to be able to just enjoy that and not get so wrapped up behind, I'm at the Olympics, I need to rest more, or I need to just do what you always do. We get stuck in this vision of getting to a competition. It's like, I need to change everything. Now I need to start stretching. Now I need to start doing ice bars. Now I need to start doing this next thing because that's going to help me. It's not. If you haven't been doing something in the build-up to an event, you probably should not be doing it now. There's probably more risk than there is reward. So it was find something that you can trust and believe in, and enjoy the journey.
That's excellent advice. I mean, going on there with regards, enjoying the journey, and that's one of the questions I ask a lot of athletes. What would you have done differently? And just like you said there, Roland, enjoy the journey a little bit more. How does an athlete find a balance when they're in competition? I mean, how do you find the balance between having some fun, enjoying the village, the Olympic Village, and the restaurants and teammates, and being serious and locked in? How do you find that balance?
Some find that balance far easier than others. For me, I was somebody that struggled to find that balance because I was so focused on swimming and wanting to win and wanting to be the best that, I was the guy that would stay off his feet and rest as much as possible. And we get so stuck in this belief that a lot of us get stuck in the belief that we have to rest, we have to stay off our feet, we have to conserve our energy instead of, the body's not designed to just lie down. And, I'd worked with some coaches that literally said, if you can be off your feet 5-6 hours a day and just conserve and store your energy, then you're going to be, that's when your performances are going to be the best. And the body's not designed to do that. It's designed to move around and to be active. So if you can sort of control your emotional response in those situations, learn to do that. Just learn to go out and just kind of just feel it around, just see what's going on. My personal experience was I know that if I'd gone in the swimming pool and raced at the 2016 Olympic Games, I probably would have been better. Just because I'd enjoyed myself. It hadn't been a singular focus for me. It had been, this is all part and parcel of the Olympic Games. Racing is just one component of it, but yet we make it the greatest component. So go for it.
Sorry, Roland, just coming in there. That is a great point because I experienced the same. I was with that same mindset, and I would find the more time I had to myself and locking myself in the bedroom or in the hotel room to relax, that's when I started to overthink, right? And started to overthink the race, overthink the strategy, overthink everything, and be exhausted. And I agree.
Exactly.
I hear what you're saying there with regards finding a balance, getting out, knowing when to rest, getting your priorities done for the day, like your stretching, your practice session, your massage, but then also having some fun.
Exactly. And you find it's those people that have that balance that end up doing the best. There's somebody that can be real excited, really motivated to get the job done, competes well, but then can completely shut it off. With these people that are, and I was guilty of that, just being stimulated the whole time. I want to compete. I want to do this race. You say over analytical, and when you have that opportunity, just sit there and overthink things. That is going to cost you. There's some people that can obviously
it's energy
work around that. Yeah, I mean, there are people that can work around that and are just that good that they can overthink things and still compete well. But then the majority of us, we're burning energy and we're putting ourselves, we're creating unnecessary stress. I mean, your body, there's good stress and there's bad stress. Yeah. You go around and you walk around the village and you experience things, or you go to the shops wherever you are. We're not talking about going out and hiking Kilimanjaro or anything of those lines, but you're putting good stress into your life. And I'd rather at this point in time see somebody walking around and filling their body or filling their experience with a good stressor than a bad stressor, because I know it's going to be far more beneficial if they're doing things that are going to, that are going to benefit them.
I've got to ask you this. You competed numerous times against Michael Phelps. You also had the better of him on a few occasions. What was it like swimming against the most decorated swimmer or Olympian of all time?
I think we lose those name tags when we are in the pool racing each other. I think a lot of people get lost in that, because I'd qualified for the Olympic Games just like he had to. I was there at the Olympics just like he was. He's an amazing talent. He's what he's done for the sport of swimming. It's like Tiger Woods. He is the greatest of all time. I don't see anybody beating that for a while. But I think for me and for the South African teams, especially in the relay team in 2004, it was stimulating for us. It was knowing that we had Michael Phelps on the relay next to us, knowing that we had Ian Thorpe, knowing that we had Peter van den Bergenbaan. It was knowing that these guys were on the other relay teams, or that we were racing against individually. for me, it was exciting because I wanted to beat the best in the world. The only way you can be the best in the world is to beat the best in the world. People go to a World Short Course Championships or this or that event that is big, and the world's best aren't there, and they walk away as the champion. And some of them, I mean, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but some people walk away from that thinking I'm the greatest. To me, and it was always like, I want the best in the world to be there, because if I don't win, there's going to be a lesson to be learned, whatever that may be. Maybe my start was off, my technique, my preparation. I'd rather lose when the best of the world are there than win and nobody is there. Because I feel that people talk about winning and losing, but to me, it's winning and learning. When you're winning, it's hard for you to look at your performances and say, okay, well, this is where I may have been lacking. When you win, you've won. Most people just go out and celebrate that. And when you've lost or when you're learning, I like to call it, it's okay, well, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Why didn't I win? And so it really was a winning versus learning situation for me. And sometimes I won, and a lot of other times I learned.
Yeah, that's just such a great lesson, especially for young athletes out there, because some can take defeat so hard and lose the vital lessons of learning. So no, excellent advice. Thanks, Roland. Roland, in my book Champion Minded, I talk about prepper readiness, the ability to prepare and then be ready for your event, and it's about that final hour before you go out and compete. So Roland Schoeman's at the World Champs, or he's at Olympics. What does his final hour look like before going out to compete?
Okay, so it would look slightly different now than it would have looked. So, and the only difference would be, and I'll get to that. Traditionally, an hour before, I generally hop into the swimming pool. I've probably spent about 30 minutes doing some sort of dynamic dry land warm-up, working mobility, some flexibility, some just core activation, just loosening up the body, getting the blood to flow. I would probably hop into the swimming pool for about 20 minutes. There was never a really specific distance that I would swim. I'd just kind of go by feel. If I felt great in the water, I'd get out. If I felt like I was a little stiff or a little sore, I might do a little bit more and just kind of ensure that I felt like I was flowing well in the water. Generally out of the pool about 40 minutes before. At that point in time, just drying off, relaxing, being around friends, cracking jokes. Other times it's just listening to music, doing my own thing, and probably about 30 minutes before, putting on my racing suit, and then we are required to be in the ready room about 20 minutes before our races.
That 20 minutes sorry, Roland, must take forever. It must feel like a lifetime, right?
It does, because there's everybody that, if you're getting ready for the 50 freestyle semifinals or finals, there are either 16 or 8 guys, and it's just testosterone, guys trying to play mind games, trying to get in your face. There's a lot of action that happens in there that most people don't have the opportunity to see. And the old me would just be sitting in there listening to music or not, and just kind of observing. Just my state of arousal wouldn't probably be ideal. And when I talk about state of arousal, I've been, had the opportunity to meet Brian McKenzie and Rob Wilson. They do the Art of Breath clinics, and in it they spoke about how breathing affects your state of arousal. And it was really interesting to me because you're walking out for the final of the Olympic Games, and not nobody, but a lot of people don't focus on the breath. We can control our physiology largely by the way we are breathing. And it was just interesting because I think having spoken to them and my understanding of breathing, I could have done a lot better going to the big meet and being able to control my physiology and control my breathing the last 15, 20 minutes before my race, just to really optimize my state of arousal. So I think that would be the difference now if I were to race again versus the way it would have been.
Roland, did you ever use visualization?
I did. I used to do a ton of visualization when I was a lot younger, and then I'd my degree was in psychology, and tried to do an emphasis in sport there, and it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, if I'm visualizing the perfect race, I'm going to be in lane 4, and this is going to be my technique and my stroke awareness, whatever it may be. And then I started getting to think, well, but what happens if I'm not in lane 4? What happens if there's a false start? To me, I think the visualization becomes so singular focused, and this is the perfect race that you're discounting too many other variables. What happens if the race is 5 minutes late or whatever it is? So I think there is a huge amount of value in the perfect race, or visualizing the performances you want. But I largely got away from that and making it very, very specific. It was more for technique changes that I was trying to do, the visualization, or just visualizing what it would be like to walk into the arena for the first time.
Again, getting back to the Champion-Minded book, there's a part in there where I talk about Michael Phelps, where he would visualize his perfect race and a lot of scenarios where things could have happened. For example, the water in the goggles, just something that could have happened. And he spoke about preparing for that moment, that he actually did swim sometimes with water in the goggles during practice. And I can't remember what race it was that he won, but he mentioned that he swam blind for the last 25 meters or 50 meters, whatever it was. I mean, so he also visualized something bad happening, and not just, because you're absolutely right. So many times we think visualization of the perfect race, the perfect match, the perfect moment. And as we know, there's 100 things that can go wrong. Then what?
Correct. And I like that. I think that, and at the point that I had been using visualization and walked away from it, I hadn't really thought about that, or hadn't had anybody guide me in that direction, saying, hey, well, you can visualize the not so perfect races as well, and finding a way to still get through it and get your hand on the wall the fastest. I wish I had somebody that had directed me in that direction at that point in time.
Did you ever get nervous before competing? And if you did, how did you deal with those?
Always. I think nerves are, when I was a kid, I've always been somebody that's real nervous, whether it is a soccer match that is just against another school, or I played cricket for the Northern Transvaal, basically our state team, and any opportunity or any time that I went out, just my nerves the day before, an hour before, I'm always nervous. But as soon as I was on the field, as soon as I walk out for a race, those nerves are gone. And I think nerves are important. My mom always told me that, are those butterflies in your stomach, are they flying, just out of control, or are they flying in unison? And it's kind of like, it made sense to me. It's okay, well, I can let these emotions, or the emotions and the nervousness, really get to me, and I can let it affect me, or I can understand that being nervous is my physiology. It's a function of my body getting ready. It's a function of my body being excited and having this event, whatever it may be important to me. That's the reason why you experience nervousness, is because what you're doing is important to you. At least for me it was. I know that there are other people out there that walk out on stage before a speech and really have a fear of talking in front of people, or really may have a fear of being out at an event like this. For me, it was always more about, this is important for me. I want to do well. And how do I really find the way to allow myself to be able to perform to the best of my abilities, in spite of any nerves that I may feel. But no, always, before events, there's always a ton of nerves. So I think it's important for anybody out there to understand that you watch the Olympic Games, you watch the Winter Olympic Games, there are always going to be people out there that are nervous. So nerves is not something that mere mortals feel. Nerves is something that everybody out there feels, and it's important to embrace that. And embrace the fact that you're nervous. Too many people try and shy away from that, but I shouldn't be nervous. I shouldn't feel these nerves. I shouldn't be this, that, and the next thing. But it's important. Nerves are important. Use those to benefit you in your performances.
Yeah, something else that's so important for young athletes to hear. Funny story, Roland. World Championships 2002 duathlon. It's in Alpharetta, Georgia. I'm as nervous as anything, and luckily I also had that type of mindset that nerves are good because it means something to you. But I almost missed the start of the race by 30 seconds. I literally sprinted from the bathroom to the start line, and I think my heart rate must have been around about 180 before I even got across the start line. So, just almost that would have been a tragedy. So.
I bet at that point in time you didn't have nerves after having to
No.
sprint to the ready line.
I had a sprinting start. So anyway, awesome. Great advice there for young athletes as well. All right, so getting near the end, Roland, this has been an awesome interview, and thanks so much for taking the time for this.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Thank you. You're retired now, and here is such an an area that I've discovered now. You know, I've been coaching for almost 23, 24 years, and I've worked with athletes who have had a career and then retired. What advice would you give someone that's in their career right now, maybe towards the end of it, and then setting up that next part of their life?
I think it's never too early to start planning what you want to do. I spoke about not having any real great mentors while I was competing, and maybe I didn't have any mentors because I had this belief somewhere that I'd be able to swim for the rest of my life and be able to be professional. But the reality is that, I guess unless you're a really good professional golfer, you're probably not going to be in a sporting career that lasts until you're 67 years of age. So it's never too early to start planning. I think find something that you love, whether it's mathematics or science or sport or movement, whatever it may be. Really find something that you love to do, and find a mentor or find mentors that can help you on this journey. Because to dedicate an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours a week to setting up your life post sport, it really is going to save you a lot of confusion and insecurity. And that was my biggest thing, moving away from swimming. It's like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How am I going to do it? And then trying to sort of lose that sense of ego of I am an athlete or I am a world champion. It's like, okay, no, you're not. What you do is a sport. It doesn't define who you are as an individual. And I think it's something that we really struggle to deal with as we move away from sport. And so, to me, it's never too early to start planning. Find something that you love, you truly enjoy, because money, I know it's cliche, but money will take care of itself to a degree. And, they say, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. To me, that's important. Swimming for me was something that I really loved doing, and I could go out and do all the workouts and didn't really, at points it was a challenge, other points it was something that I just loved going out there and doing, so it was never really a chore for me. And the goal is obviously to have that same sort of thing in life post-competition.
Again, in the book Champion Minded, there's a chapter there called Identity Crisis, that athletes can have an identity crisis after their career, where they were known as Mark the golfer or Roland the swimmer. So was it tough to lose that label, or moving on into that second chapter?
Definitely so. I think it's you identify with that. I definitely identified with the fact that I was an Olympic medalist, that I was a swimmer, that I was whatever it is. That's what you become, and by default you become what you've done. And we aren't always able to separate ourselves from those achievements. And some people, and that's why I advocate for finding something you love during sport, because there's a seamless transition, being able to walk away from that and into something else that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, that fills that void. Because when you stop competing, there is a large void in your life. It's that stimulation that you receive on a daily basis, whether it's from training hard or from competing, whatever it is. I'm very, very fortunate that there are a couple of things that I've undertook and that still have me, working out every single day. I'm actually back in the swimming pool. I've been in the pool for about a month now, and just swimming up and down. I'm going to do some masters swimming events coming up, and
excellent.
Just for fun, just be able to really enjoy that component of it. I love human movement. I love seeing the fractal patterns that exist in movement, and I really want to be able to continue this journey into the human body and movement. So I finally think I'm being able to separate that identity crisis in essence, and find. I think the identity crisis comes in because we don't have anything else. People that generally have something else to move into, whether it's a father's company or a family business or another interest, whatever it is, those people make that transition a lot easier because there's something else to focus on. There is another goal. Most of us, you find a golfer whose only goal is to win the Masters. They win the Masters, and then what next? Unless you have your contingency B and C and D, it's a big struggle. And I know a lot of us struggle with this because you do what you really want to do, and you get to where you want to be, and then all of a sudden you don't know where to next. And I think that's where the biggest identity, well, in my opinion, the biggest identity crisis comes in, is because, well, what next? We don't have anything to fall back on or move on towards.
Roland, you mentioned that you were doing a bit of coaching as well. You were helping a swimmer from Trinidad and Tobago, and besides playing golf in Dubai, which I saw on Twitter just a few weeks ago, what are you most passionate about today? What keeps you busy?
I think the human body and understanding the way we function and operate in a sporting capacity. I do not claim to be a sports scientist in any way, shape, or form, nor will I ever. I don't think I'm that way inclined. But to me, the human body is an incredible thing, and what I really want to do is walk away at the end of the day with a better understanding of how the human body works, the way the movement functions, whether it's in swimming, the way we move, and or athletics or whatever it is. To me, that's what I love right now, understanding the human body more, understanding why we work the way we work in a sporting sense, why our energy systems work the way it works. It's exciting. It's like a Pandora's box to me. The more questions I have, the more I end up having. It's like going down this big rabbit hole, and it's exciting for me. It really is. So, yeah, I've been doing some consulting work. I consulted with the Czech national junior team. I consult with the Singapore national team and help them with some technique components and sprint components. My start was my start in my first 25 meters was always my real strength that came quite naturally. So I think over time I've been able to identify the patterns in starts that will help optimize your trajectory and the entry into the water. So it's something that I'm trying to help implement other swimmers into doing. So I have worked a little one-on-one with some kids here and there, but also done a fair amount of work with national teams, and I'll really continue to do that because I really want to be able to give back to the world of swimming, and this gives me an opportunity to do so.
Excellent. All right, Roland, on to rapid-fire questions, not more than one word or sentence. Are you ready?
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, favorite hobby?
Golf.
Favorite band, musician?
Prime Circle, South African band.
Okay, local. Favorite Olympic event to watch besides swimming?
It's either got to be track and field or curling at the Winter Olympics.
Okay. Yeah, they got a bit of publicity this last Olympics in Korea, didn't they? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it.
Last book read?
The Sleep Solution. I have some issues with sleep, so read that to help.
Interesting. Is that a book you'd recommend to athletes out there who struggle with sleep?
Definitely.
Okay, excellent. One rule I'd change in swimming today?
It's not so much a rule, but I'd probably have them include the 50 meters of strokes and shorter relays at the Olympic Games. Way more entertaining than longer stuff.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Primal Fear with Richard Gere.
Okay. Favorite food?
Sushi.
I was hoping you would say a braai there, but Yeah.
I know, but I mean, most people listening to this aren't going to know what a braai is, but it's braai is a traditional South African barbecue. Yeah, you can't get better than that.
Exactly. Favorite sports team?
I would have to go ahead and say any Arizona team, Arizona Cardinals or the Phoenix Coyotes, probably those two.
All right, so baseball, hey? Favorite country or place ever visited besides South Africa?
Besides South Africa, I'd have to say Zanzibar.
Okay. Tea, coffee, or protein shake?
Definitely coffee.
Okay.
I make an unbelievable coffee in the mornings.
All right, excellent. I'm a coffee guy myself in the morning. So actually, I'm a coffee guy
Nice.
all day long.
You don't discriminate.
Favorite athlete, male and female, past or present? So a male and female, past or present.
Male would probably be Muhammad Ali,
Mm-hmm.
and female. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'd probably say Dara Torres. Dara Torres is an amazing swimmer. She won several Olympic medals, retired for a very long time, came back at 40 years of age, and won an Olympic silver medal in the 50-meter freestyle.
She made a comeback at 40 years.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, Roland, then we're thinking of a comeback, right? You did mention you were getting back in the pool, right?
There we go. Dara, I hope you're listening.
You heard it here first. Something others don't know about you.
When I was a kid, just learned how to walk, and we were at this big barbecue competition in South Africa, and I actually fell into a fire and burnt my legs pretty bad, and doctors told my parents I'd never be able to walk again.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Person who inspired or inspires you the most?
My mom and Nelson Mandela.
Okay. Are you a rule follower or a risk taker?
More of a rule follower, but definitely a risk taker when it comes to wanting to be a better version of myself.
Okay. If you weren't a professional swimmer, what would you have been? Or have liked to have been?
And maybe an astronaut. I think those guys have the opportunity to, go into outer space and see how small our Earth really is.
Wow, I didn't expect that one.
What did you expect?
Well, I mean, for example, we had Kevin Anderson who wanted to be a musician, but an astronaut. I like that. That's out of the world thinking. So I like that.
Literally.
One word that best describes you, and I know that's a difficult one because there can be a few, but
I'd probably say driven.
Biggest pet peeve?
People eating with their mouths open.
Favorite cheat food?
Probably pizza.
Okay. And the best moment of your career?
Best moment of my career was without a doubt the 2004 Olympic Games, winning gold in that 4x100 freestyle relay in a new world record. Just being able to share that experience with three other brothers who are still friends to this day. It's something that we will continue to share, and something that was just truly, truly special.
And I think if I'm not wrong, you beat the United States into second there.
We did. If Michael Phelps had won gold, that would have been his first Olympics to have won 8 gold medals. So we fortunately stopped him.
Wow, excellent. Roland, it's been a pleasure. I know you're a busy guy, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule. If others want to connect with you or follow you, what would be the best way?
I am on Twitter and Instagram, Roland Schoeman. My email addresses would be on both accounts, so if they want to email me or just send me a direct message on either of those social media accounts, that's probably the easiest way to go about it.
And website, is that also an option?
Yes, just rolandschoeman.co.za or ZA, depending on where you're from.
Excellent. And then, Roland, final question. In your opinion, what does it take to be champion-minded?
In my opinion, what it takes to be champion-minded is somebody that is somewhat stubborn, completely driven, and self-motivated. It's probably, I mean, it could, I could elaborate on that for quite some time, but it really is somebody that knows what they want and willing to do absolutely anything in their power legally to achieve that.
Excellent. Roland Schoeman, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Allistair, thank you very much for having me on the show. Look forward to a follow-up.
So that's it. Another episode in the bag. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, teammates, family, fellow coaches, anyone who might benefit from this message and who wants to create excellence in their lives. Also, get on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a review. Thank you so much to those who have done that already. I appreciate it. I'm also on the YouTube channel of Champion Minded Podcast. And if you want to connect on social media, I'm at Twitter at Allistair McCaw, Instagram Be Champion Minded, Facebook McCaw Method, and if you want to send me an email, suggestions, feedback, whatever's on your mind, you can do that at mccawmethod@aol.com. Also, a big thank you to all of you who share the message on social media under the hashtag ChampionMinded. I love seeing your photos, love seeing your quotes and your feedback. And please, please, please share the message. Remember, you were meant for greatness, so go out and do the work. Until next time, stay champion-minded, my friends.